Hello, it's Freddie Cruz, and this is the first of two interviews I recorded at Archway Gallery, hence the difference in sound quality. It's just a little reverby, so you'll notice that. Otherwise, these are amazing conversations that you're going to hear this week. Now, a little bit about Archway Gallery. It's the oldest artist-owned gallery, not just in Houston, but in the state of Texas. You're going to find them in the Montrose area. Catch up with them at archwaygallery.com. Their featured artist is Jim Hill. A staple in the Houston area since 1978, Jim's journey has taken him all over the world, and from LA to DC, he's got commissions across the United States. During this episode, we discuss all the things: his creative process, the strangers who inspire his work, and the defining moment that led him to becoming a teacher. If you enjoyed this episode, please consider sharing with your family and friends, and or leave a short review on your favorite podcast platform.
Hi, I'm Ed Sheeran. This is Bruno Mars.
Hey, it's Katy Perry.
This is your man Flo Rida with Freddie Cruz.
This is AJ Mitchell with Freddie Cruz.
Freddie Cruz.
Freddie Cruz.
Tell you go pick Mr. 305 and you already know what it is.
My name is Freddie, and it's time to cruise through HTX. Jim.
Yes.
What was the first thing you ever painted?
The first thing I ever painted was two joggers on their jogging track back when I was a freshman at Ouachita College in Arkadelphia, Arkansas. And those were little sketches with watercolor.
Who were the joggers?
I have no idea. I liked the shapes. I liked the movement. I tried to capture their movement rather than just standing straight up and down. I had some angles to use, and that turned out pretty well. It turned out pretty well. Your first efforts sometimes turn out really well, and then you get busy, and later not so good.
What about that painting? Do you still have it? Did you sell it?
You know, I'll have to look for it. After painting here in Houston since 1978, I have rooms full of work that I've done. Some good, some bad. Sometimes I go back and work on it, but I'll have to look and see if I still have that piece.
What about paintings that maybe you are, and this is a presumption on my part, maybe paintings that you feel are less than stellar that you moved out, that you're like, whoa, I can't believe I sold that?
Okay, so paintings that have sold, that I no longer have, that I wish I still had to look at, that sort of thing. Occasionally that happens. I have favorites, and usually my favorites aren't what the public might have as a favorite. The favorites I have are the ones that were the hardest to achieve, something I didn't think I could achieve. And occasionally the public sees that as something they really want to buy or have, and it goes. Mm-hmm. But I have a lot of my early pieces and more recent ones too that have turned out really well, that, in my opinion, that I still have.
We are sitting at the Archway Gallery. It is your exhibition, and right now you are in front of a very blue and a very green and a very aqua kind of turquoisey piece. It's longer, more than it's like, it's more horizontal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's more horizontal than vertical. And talk to me about that piece. It looks like water in a mountain maybe, or?
Well, my theme for this exhibit, I think there are 29 paintings here at Archway. I chose a theme of a place in mind. So these are places that I have either been to or want to go to or have taught about in college and when I taught in high school. I've done research on, and just important places in my mind. This piece is the Danube. And I wanted a very long horizontal canvas. Usually when I have something in mind, I think of the canvas size first. Do I want it to be square? Do I want it to be tall, wide, whatever? So this is, I think, 4 feet across the Danube River. I had taught about that, especially when I taught college art history classes. It's really interesting about the Danube. It's very blue. It goes through many European countries. along the banks, they change languages from one language to the other. That's always been interesting to me. We don't have that sort of thing in the United States, except you get down to Louisiana, where it's a little different down there. But it's a beautiful river, lots of history, and there's not, in this painting, I don't have any architecture, any structure. It's just nature. And so the blues and the greens were colors that I chose.
I want to go back to you selecting the canvas before the painting. So by selecting the canvas before the painting, do you mean you're not even thinking about what it is you're going to paint? You're going to go to, I don't know, Michael's, or do professional artists even go to Michael's and Hobby Lobby? Okay, so you go to the store, get your canvas. That's going to be something you haven't even thought about, the Danube with the mountaintop.
Usually I have several thoughts in mind. Okay. I mean, I'm a painter. I look at everything. I see shadows. I see what few colorful leaves we have here in Houston. All of that impresses me. I see art, things that I'd like to accomplish in almost everything I see. So I usually do have something in mind when I purchase a canvas. It doesn't have to be canvas. It could be masonite or paper or whatever.
I'm sorry, what's masonite?
Masonite is, they used to use, it's a building material, and they used to panel walls with it. It's a slick surface, I guess nowadays, on both sides. In the old days, it was slick on one side and rough on the other. And you would nail that to the studs in the room, and that was your protection, your wall protection. Well, a lot of artists paint on masonite, or it could be any hard board, paper, which usually has to be framed under glass. And I paint with acrylic, so canvases just work really well for me. Many times I'll buy a canvas that's stretched around on the edges so that it doesn't really need to be framed. It can stand alone as a painting. Okay. And the edges are even painted. But to get back to your question about the first thing I do is purchase something to paint on. And when I get home to my studio's in the home, I sit in front of a blank canvas. So I'm really happy. That's a happy time for me. And then I start drawing and manipulating acrylic paint on there. It changes. I paint in layers. I paint about 2 hours at a time. And the whole painting is determined by the size that I chose.
How many days, if you're painting 2 hours at a time, how many days does it take for you to finish something like this?
That's a good question. People ask me that all the time. I paint in 2 hour segments, so I could paint 3 times in one day or 4 times in 2 hour sessions. That's just about all I want to be seated in front of what I'm doing there. I paint in layers, and sometimes it surprises me. It might be finished, when I leave after 2 hours, I come back into the room to see what I accomplished, if anything. It's very rare that it happens very quickly. So I paint in layers. Acrylic dries in about 2 hours, so you have some time to work on it, and then let it dry and come back and re-establish what you're trying to do. My work is very intuitive. It's from my mind. One of the reasons that I put that in the theme for the show. So only once or twice have I sat for 2 hours and the painting was finished.
Have you ever, after your first 2 hours of working on something, come back and you're like, garbage, trash?
Yes.
Do you keep going or do you throw it away?
I put it aside.
Okay.
And you'd be surprised how many times I've gone back and revived, maybe reconstructed what I had originally ended with.
I like that.
And it's very invigorating. Painting is a very emotional thing for an artist. They are your babies. You're creating them. And you're devoting your time and your energy into getting that done.
That you don't get back. You don't get the time back that you're spending.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
You don't get it back. So all of it, to me, even the bad stuff, after 2 hours, I like to revisit, so to speak. And many of these have been paintings over other paintings that were rejected originally.
Oh, rejected by you or rejected by somebody?
Rejected by me.
By you.
So
okay.
there's a painting over here, a City of Steel, that's tall.
This one on the left?
No, the one with the lady figure in
Okay.
it. So I had originally painted the seated lady. And then when I worked on, I thought, well, I'm just going to make that into a cityscape. And so as I painted, I didn't realize, I'm painting out some of the things that were on there before. I didn't realize the female seated figure was still there. And all of a sudden, when I come back after my 2-hour painting session and I take a break, I come back and there she is. So I decided to leave that. So
I like it.
Yeah, it's interesting how an artist can be surprised by their own work. So I leave an open door. Mm-hmm. I have friends, many friends who are artists, and they specifically want to paint something. And the miraculous thing is they do. My work isn't like that. It's very intuitive. It happens or it doesn't happen. I love color. Color is very important to me.
It's very obvious in looking at your work.
Well, thank you.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Color I will not deviate from. It has to be the colors that I like for that particular piece, and they vary from image to image. And shape, I love working with shapes. So when I work with shapes, I reorganize as I'm back for a second 2-hour session. I'll reorganize it a little bit. And occasionally I just turn the whole thing upside down.
What do you mean by turning upside down?
Well, I turn the canvas upside down with the painting on it.
Literally?
And I see something, yes.
Okay.
And I see something that's there that I can work with. So that's been interesting. I don't do that all the time, but when I'm frustrated and I think this is too good to, throw away and not ever paint on it, let's just turn it upside down and see if it works. Most of, all of this show is figurative. It's not non-representational or abstract. Now, you might think that it's abstract in some sense, but in my mind, when I paint it, I'm actually painting something. I'm not painting abstract. You think of reconstructing the object or the image a little bit. Mine, in this show, they're not like that. I have one painting of the guitar player, which is about as close as I have ever come to portraiture. I don't paint realism. I do paint people's faces, but they're my people's faces, things that I remember about that particular person.
So what do you remember about the gentleman with the guitar?
The guitar is a long story. I've been to several receptions where they had guitar players playing, so I think that is part of it. But I went to Puerto Vallarta many, many years ago, and there was a restaurant we were advised to go to called, I believe it's Les Sept. It's where Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton had Night of the Iguana was filmed, something back there. I never have done the research, but it was a film set, movie set, and it's on a cliff. And you enter from the top, and they seat you down on different levels, and there was a guitar player down at the bottom with the ocean, the waves coming up. It was just the most beautiful sight, and he was dressed like that. And he was a young man singing. I was so impressed. I wasn't far enough away that I couldn't see him singing, but the sound was wonderful, and so that's what I think of when I see that piece.
There's one here at Archway Gallery. Is it called Central Park, or it's a painting of Central Park?
City Park is a silk screen. Mm-hmm. Several years ago, back in the late 80s, there were two separate companies. They were silk screen artists that came to me at different times and said, Jim, we like your work because you use flat shapes. And this would be so good to print as a silk screen. Now, another word for silk screen is serigraph. So these were serigraphers. And that's all they did. They didn't paint. They printed other artists' work in an edition, so it's a publication. And we worked out a deal. I got a certain percent of the prints, signed and numbered. They're very large. I think they're almost 3 feet across and maybe 2 feet high.
That is quite sizey.
Yeah. And the one they chose an original painting that was approximately that same size. And they said, this is what we want. What is this? City Park is what I called it. Well, I was thinking of Central Park in New York City. And so I have everything in there. I have the gazebo, I have people strolling, I have babies in baby carriages with the mother and the dad, I have little dogs, I have pigeons. There's some cityscape buildings in the background with some sky. Someone told me not too long ago, this cannot be Central Park because you put sailboats in the lake. And I said, yes, they're big sailboats, but those are children's sailboats that they bring to the park and float in the lake.
And it works for this piece because it's not representational. Is that?
Well, it is representational, but you have to use your imagination to see it as representation.
Right. Okay. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that's where some people get hung up when they look at art.
That's exactly right.
Because it has to be a 1,000% correct and accurate representation of what it is you have painted. And I think that's different from somebody who, let's say, produces a movie, directs a movie, writes a book. Because if you're going to be writing about, I don't know, ancient Roman times, you want to make sure you get the emperors right. And if it's Roman times, you want to make sure they're not, I don't know, from Asia or something.
Get your research right.
Get your research right. But this, I mean, it works.
This works. The design of it, I'm very interested in composition. So you have to balance things, and you have to get the colors balanced and the shapes and so forth. I always like some sky in the background. I don't know why. And I use a lot of blues and greens, so a lot of green for the grass in the park and so forth. There's some sidewalks meandering through.
Bonus points for using meandering. I love that word. You don't hear that very often.
It's funny, a story aside from this. I taught at college level. I went, a president of a college talked one time to the faculty, and he was talking about building new sidewalks and everything. He said, we don't build new sidewalks. We let the students walk where they want to go and make the path, and then we build the sidewalk where the path is. Oh. If we had an engineer come in, we'd have all these angles and things. So we let the students do all that, and then we decide, we're going to make a path. So that's what I have. I have some meandering paths through Central Park.
Let's build on you being a teacher. What was the defining moment that influenced that decision?
That's a good question. I have always wanted to share art. I'm a late bloomer. I had no art whatsoever till I was like a junior in college. So
that's late bloomer for you.
Yeah, that's a late bloomer, and I'm a late bloomer, period. So I wanted people to know that they could, by the time I was blooming, you could take art classes in high school and in junior high and so forth. There was none of that where I went to school in Arkansas. We had plays and we had poems and we had language classes and that sort of thing. But I was really pretty much starved to share. I'm a sharing person. If I do something that could help you, I want to help you with it. And I think learning how to teach effectively was a goal. Mm.
What do most outsiders get wrong about the art scene in Houston?
Well, that's another good question. I don't know what they get wrong. I think we're so happy here at Archway to have people come in. Many of the people who come in for the first time see our sign outside. Sometimes we have the door wide open and they come in. And first thing they say is, I've never been in an art gallery before. So we're so pleased to get those people. Those are our treasures. And many of them live in the neighborhood, so they're walking around. We're occupying a space in a beautiful neighborhood where there's a lot of people walking, and we love that. So I think capturing the person and showing them that it's safe to come into an art museum and to explain how our art gallery is a little different from most art galleries, that's encouraging to us.
Final question for you. In 100 years, somebody stumbles across one of your paintings. What do you hope and or want and or think they will take away from it?
Well, I hope they'll see some joy in it, because I paint happy things. I don't paint doomsday, leave that to someone else. It's not a problem, but I don't paint that. I paint joyous, happy, whimsical things. I love the use of color, to use color, and so I hope they see that as something that is fun and happy and something they could look at over a long period of time.
All right. Jim Hill is the artist. Archway Gallery is where you can come and see his work. It is a place in mind. And you are celebrating a birthday on the 16th?
I will be 81 on the 16th of December, 2023, and we're having a champagne music, and we have a guy from Scotland, very talented 18-year-old playing Scottish fiddle music, so it'll be very entertaining, and I hope you can come to that.
Well, that is going to be awesome. And if you're listening and it's after that, then you missed the party. But you can always come by Archway Gallery and see all of the fantastic artists that are on exhibit. Not just Jim, but they've got a whole array of different paintings and sculptures, all the different textures and colors and themes and whatnot. Jim, you are an inspiration. Thank you so much for coming by the podcast and sharing with me the story of your art.
Oh, thanks, Freddie. Thanks. Nice to be here.
Hey, it's me. I'm back with a quick little nudge. If you enjoyed this podcast as much as I did putting it together for you, then please leave a review on your favorite podcast platform and subscribe to the newsletter at cruisethroughhtx.com and share with your family and friends. Thank you.